I had always believed that trust between siblings was something as natural and unbreakable as the air we breathe. From as far back as I could remember, Michael had been more than just my brother. He was my confidant, my protector. The one person I could turn to when the world outside felt overwhelming. Our family had a rhythm that felt steady and reassuring. Sunday dinners filled with laughter, shared inside jokes, and the kind of warmth that wrapped around you like a favorite blanket on a chilly evening. Our home sat nestled in a quiet neighborhood, where the streets were lined with trees whose leaves whispered secrets in the wind. It was a place where everyone knew each other, where doors were left unlocked, and where our parents had built a life full of love and tradition. Michael and I had grown up in that cocoon of familiarity, the two of us inseparable through childhood adventures and adolescent challenges alike. His presence was constant, a steady anchor in the shifting tides of life. I could still recall the countless times Michael had stood up for me, whether it was deflecting teasing classmates in middle school, or staying up late to help me study for exams. He had this way of making me feel seen and understood even when words failed. Our late-night conversations in his room, lit only by the soft glow of a desk lamp, were sacred. We shared dreams, fears, and secrets, building a fortress of trust that I believed nothing could penetrate. It was on one of those quiet afternoons, during the lull of a lazy Saturday, that everything began to shift. I was rummaging through the old storage closet in the attic, looking for the box of photo albums we had promised to organize for our parents. The air was thick with dust, and the faint scent of aged paper mixed with the wood of the attic beams. As I shifted a stack of old board games, a small worn leather pouch caught my eye. It wasn't something I recognized from our usual family belongings. Curiosity drew me closer, and I hesitated only briefly before untying the pouch's delicate string. Inside, nestled among a few crumpled pieces of paper, was a small collection of letters and a folded photograph. The edges of the letters were yellowed, the ink faded but still legible. My heart quickened as I realized these were not ordinary correspondences. They were addressed to Michael, but the handwriting was unfamiliar to me. The words hinted at something secretive, something that didn't match the open, straightforward person I thought I knew. A knot formed in my stomach as I unfolded the photograph. It showed Michael standing beside a man I had never seen before, their smiles uneasy, their eyes shadowed. The image seemed like a fragment of a hidden past, a side of Michael I had never been privy to. For a long moment I sat there, caught between disbelief and a creeping sense of unease. How could this be? The brother who had always been my protector, the one I trusted above all, harboring secrets I never imagined? The silence of the attic suddenly felt oppressive, the weight of the discovery pressing down on me. I carefully folded the letters back into the pouch, my mind racing with questions and doubts. Was this something he wanted to keep hidden from the family? Was it a mistake to have found this at all? I felt an unfamiliar tremor of fear not just for myself, but for the fragile harmony of our family life. That evening our home was as warm and familiar as ever. The aroma of my mother's cooking filled the kitchen, and the low hum of our father's laughter drifted from the living room. Michael sat beside me at the dinner table, his usual easy smile lighting up his face. But beneath that smile I sensed a distance I couldn't explain, a gulf opened by the secret I now carried alone. As I pushed peas around my plate, my mind replayed every moment I had shared with Michael. The late-night talks, the promises, the unspoken bond. The secret in the attic felt like a fissure running through the foundation of everything I believed about him. I wanted to reach out, to ask him directly, but the words caught in my throat. How could I confront someone who had always been my safe harbor? That night I lay awake in my room, staring at the ceiling as the house settled into sleep. The quiet was broken only by the distant ticking of the clock, each second marking the growing distance between the brother I knew and the one I now suspected existed beneath the surface. The trust one had taken for granted felt fragile, like a delicate glass ornament on the edge of a shelf. In the days that followed, my interactions with Michael became a careful dance. I observed him closely, looking for clues, trying to reconcile the brother I loved with the secret he seemed to keep. He remained his usual self, kind, attentive, the familiar presence I had always known. But the shadow of the hidden letters lingered between us, unseen but undeniable. Our family continued its routines, unaware of the storm quietly brewing beneath the surface. We gathered for movie nights, shared stories over breakfast, and exchanged the casual touches of affection that defined our closeness. Yet, within me a restlessness grew, a tension between loyalty and suspicion that I struggled to contain. One afternoon, as we sat side by side on the porch swing, Michael shared a memory from our childhood, his voice warm and nostalgic. I wanted to believe in those moments, to hold on to the brother who had been my protector and friend. But the secret in my pocket weighed heavily, a silent barrier between us. I found myself questioning everything: the meaning of trust, the nature of truth, and how well we can ever truly know the people closest to us. The discovery had unsettled not only my perception of Michael, but also the very fabric of our family's stability. It was as if a quiet tremor had begun beneath the surface, threatening to ripple outward and disrupt the calm we had always taken for granted. Despite the turmoil inside, I chose to remain silent for the time being. I wasn't ready to confront Michael, nor to share the secret with our parents. The fear of fracturing the family I loved was overpowering. Instead, I held the secret close, a fragile thing that both connected and divided us. In the stillness of those early days, I clung to the hope that this was a misunderstanding, that there was an explanation waiting to be uncovered. I reminded myself of all the reasons to trust Michael, the years of unwavering support, the kindness that had never faltered. But beneath that hope, a quiet dread whispered that nothing would ever be the same again. Our family life, once a sanctuary of warmth and certainty, now felt shadowed by the unknown. The hidden secret was a fissure that threatened to widen, and I stood at the edge, uncertain whether to step back or to cross into territory that could change everything. The calm before the storm had settled over us, fragile and deceptive, as I prepared to face the difficult path ahead. The weight of the secret pressed heavily on my chest, making it hard to breathe every time I saw Michael. I knew I couldn't carry this alone any longer. The quiet unease that had settled between us was suffocating, and the questions swirling in my mind demanded answers. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the room in soft amber light, I found the courage to confront him. We sat in the living room, the hum of the television a dull backdrop to the storm brewing inside me. Michael's eyes, usually so open and warm, held a guarded look that made my heart ache. I took a deep breath, steadying myself, and finally spoke the words I'd rehearsed countless times. "Michael, I need to talk to you about something. I found some letters. They were in the attic." My voice trembled, betraying the calm I tried to maintain. He froze, the remote slipping from his fingers. The room seemed to hold its breath, the silence stretching unbearably long. Then, with a sigh, he looked away, his jaw tightening. "I didn't want you to find those," he admitted quietly. His evasiveness hit me like a blow. The Michael I knew, the brother I trusted, was slipping away behind walls I hadn't seen before. I felt a bitter sting of betrayal, tangled with my love for him. "Why didn't you tell me? Why keep this from all of us?" I asked, voice cracking. He avoided my gaze, running a hand through his hair. "It's complicated. I didn't want to hurt anyone or cause trouble." Yet the words felt hollow, and the distance between us widened. In the days that followed, my mind became a battleground of conflicting emotions. I wanted to believe Michael had reasons, that there was more to the story than I understood. But the silence, the evasions, only deepened the chasm. I replayed our conversations, searching for clues, but found only half-truths and guarded responses. The more I tried to reconcile the brother I loved with the man who hid secrets, the more fractured my feelings became. Was this the same Michael who had stayed up late helping me with school projects? The one who had stood by me in moments of fear and uncertainty? The thought felt like a cruel puzzle with missing pieces. I wrestled with the fear that this secret might unravel not just our relationship but the entire fabric of our family. The thought of my parents discovering the truth, what would they say? How would they react? I dreaded the idea of seeing their faces clouded with disappointment or confusion. The family dinners, once filled with laughter and warmth, now seemed fragile, as if one wrong move could shatter everything. Caught between protecting Michael and preserving the family harmony, I felt trapped. Each passing day added to the weight of the secret, pressing down harder on my conscience. I found myself withdrawing from conversations, avoiding eye contact, and masking my unease behind forced smiles. One afternoon, as I sat on the porch swing, Michael joined me silently. The evening breeze stirred the leaves, and for a moment, the quiet between us felt less heavy. I gathered my courage again. Michael, I need to understand. Please tell me what this is about. He hesitated, then exhaled deeply. I want to, but it's not easy. I'm trying to protect you all from something I thought was best kept hidden. His eyes searched mine, pleading for patience I wasn't sure I could offer. The vulnerability beneath his words cracked the armor of my anger, but the pain of his secrecy lingered. I realized that love didn't erase hurt, and trust once broken was a fragile thing to rebuild. Our conversations became tentative, filled with pauses and half-spoken truths. I sensed Michael's internal struggle mirrored my own, a shared burden we both carried in different ways. Yet, the silence between us was deafening, a reminder of the distance growing despite our best efforts. At night I lay awake, the questions swirling endlessly. Could I forgive the deception? Was it possible to move past the betrayal without losing the bond we had built? Fear gnawed at me. Not only for Michael but for the family we cherished. The tension seeped into the smallest moments. At breakfast, I caught Michael stealing glances but quickly looking away. During family gatherings, I felt like an outsider to my own life, burdened by knowledge they did not share. The secret had become a wall between us, thick and unyielding. I began to wrestle with the impossible choice. To reveal the truth to our parents, risking their heartbreak in the family's unity, or to keep the secret, carrying the weight and hoping Michael's reasons were justified. The internal conflict was relentless, each option fraught with pain and uncertainty. One evening, after a particularly strained day, I found myself alone in the kitchen, the silence pressing in. Michael entered quietly, the unspoken tension between us palpable. For a moment we simply looked at each other. Two people caught in a web of love and hurt. I don't want to lose this, I whispered, my voice barely audible. But I don't know how to trust you right now. He nodded slowly, his eyes reflecting the same turmoil. I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I was scared. Those words hung between us, fragile and raw. It was the first crack in his armor, a glimpse of the man beneath the secrets. Yet the path forward remained uncertain, tangled in emotions too complex to unravel quickly. As days slipped into weeks, I found myself caught in the tide of conflicting feelings. Love and betrayal, hope and despair. The secret was no longer just Michael's burden. It had become mine, a silent fracture threatening to widen with every unspoken word. I realized that this was only the beginning of a long, painful journey. The easy certainty of childhood trust had given way to a complicated reality where love was tested by deception, and the bonds of family strained under the weight of hidden truths. In the quiet moments, I clung to memories of better times, holding on to the hope that understanding and forgiveness might one day bridge the gap. But for now, the secret loomed between us, a shadow casting doubt over every smile, every conversation, every moment we shared. And so I stood at the crossroads of love and pain, unsure which path to take, knowing that whatever lay ahead, nothing would ever be quite the same again. The secret I had tried so hard to contain finally slipped from the fragile grasp of silence, unraveling the delicate threads that had once held our family together. It was an ordinary evening when everything changed. A moment that began with a whispered conversation and ended in a torrent of emotions none of us were prepared to face. It started when Mom found the leather pouch in the attic, tucked away among the forgotten boxes. She came to me first, confusion and worry etched across her face. I felt the walls close in as I realized the secret I had guarded was no longer mine alone to bear. The truth was now a wildfire, spreading rapidly and consuming the calm we had all taken for granted. That night, voices rose in the living room, a cacophony of anger, disappointment, and disbelief. Michael sat at the center, his usual composure shattered, eyes red-rimmed and weary. Our parents' faces were a mixture of hurt and confusion, their voices trembling as they struggled to understand the man they thought they knew. I don't understand why you kept this from us. Dad's voice broke through the tension, laced with both frustration and pain. We trusted you, Michael. We trusted all of you. Michael's response was a quiet apology, but it felt insufficient against the storm of emotions raging around us. The family we had nurtured with so much love and care now felt fragile, like glass shards scattered across the floor, impossible to piece back together without cutting ourselves in the process. The room pulsed with raw emotion. Mom's hands trembled as she clutched a chair, her voice wavering. Why didn't you come to us? We could have helped. But Michael's silence spoke volumes, a barrier he seemed unable or unwilling to break. The weight of his secret had become a wedge, driving us apart in ways I hadn't anticipated. I watched as my parents' faces crumpled with disappointment, their trust fractured in the wake of the revelation. In the days that followed, our home felt like a battlefield. Conversations were laced with accusations and regret, the warmth replaced by a cold distance that settled over every interaction. Family dinners, once filled with laughter and shared stories, became tense affairs where words were chosen carefully or left unsaid. The strain was palpable, and I found myself caught between loyalty to my brother and sympathy for my parents' hurt. The secret had torn at the very fabric of our relationships, leaving us all adrift in a sea of mistrust. Michael withdrew into himself, his once vibrant presence now subdued and guarded. The protective shield he had worn for so long seemed to have crumbled, leaving him exposed and vulnerable. I felt helpless watching him retreat, knowing that the secret had not only broken our family, but also fractured the brother I had loved and trusted. One evening, the tension reached a breaking point. A heated argument erupted between Michael and Dad, words sharp and unforgiving. Voices echoed through the house, carrying the pain and anger that had been simmering beneath the surface. "You should have told us the truth," Dad shouted, his face flushed with frustration. "We could have faced this together. Instead, you chose to hide it." Michael's eyes glistened with unshed tears as he replied, voice trembling. "I was scared. I didn't want to lose you all." The confrontation laid bare the raw wounds inflicted by secrecy, the unspoken fears and disappointments that had festered in the shadows. It was a moment of reckoning, where the cracks in our family's foundation became impossible to ignore. In the aftermath, silence settled like a heavy fog. Each of us retreated into our own corners, grappling with the fallout in solitude. The home that once echoed with warmth now felt hollow, haunted by the echoes of shattered trust. I found myself burdened with guilt and responsibility, torn between the desire to protect Michael and the need to heal the family. The secret had become a chasm, and I stood at the edge, uncertain how to bridge the divide. Loneliness wrapped around me like a shroud. Friends noticed my withdrawal, but I offered only vague explanations, unwilling or unable to share the turmoil within. The weight of the family fracture pressed down, making even the simplest interactions feel overwhelming. In quiet moments, I replayed the events leading to this fracture, searching for answers or signs I might have missed. Could I have done something differently? Was there a way to mend what had been broken before it spiraled out of control? But the answers eluded me, replaced by a growing awareness that some wounds run deep and take time to heal. The path forward was uncertain, fraught with pain and the daunting task of rebuilding what had been lost. Amidst the turmoil, I longed for connection, for the closeness that had defined our family before the secret came to light. Yet, with each attempt to reach out, the distance seemed to widen, as if the revelation had erected invisible walls between us all. In the quiet hours of the night, I often found myself on the porch, staring at the stars and grappling with a profound sense of loss. The family I had known, the sanctuary of love and trust, felt fractured beyond recognition. And yet, beneath the pain, a small flicker of hope remained. A fragile belief that with time, patience, and understanding, we might find a way back to each other. But for now, the fractures were raw, the emotional wounds open, and the journey toward healing just beginning. In the days following the storm that had torn through our family, I found myself retreating into a quiet space of reflection. The chaos of accusations and hurtful words had left scars that were still raw, but beneath the surface, a slow and painful process of understanding had begun to take root. It was as if the shattering of trust had forced me to confront not only Michael's secret, but also the complexities of forgiveness and the fragile nature of human frailty. I spent long hours wandering through the familiar rooms of our home, now shadowed by silence and unspoken pain. The photographs on the walls, once symbols of happy memories, now seemed to hold ghosts of what we had lost. Yet, in those quiet moments, I also began to see beyond the surface of betrayal, glimpsing the deeper struggles that had shaped Michael's choices. One afternoon, as the late spring sun filtered through the curtains, I found Michael sitting alone in the study, staring out the window with an expression I had seldom seen, weariness tinged with sorrow. Tentatively, I joined him, the air between us thick with things left unsaid. "I've been thinking a lot," I began softly. About everything that happened. He looked at me, his eyes heavy but attentive. Me too. There was a pause, then he spoke, his voice low and hesitant. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. The secret wasn't about hiding something bad. It was about protecting us from pain I thought we couldn't bear. His words struck a chord deep within me. For the first time I saw the human behind the secret, the fears, the hopes, and the burdens he had carried alone. It was a revelation that softened the sharp edges of my anger and opened a door to empathy. I understand why you were scared, I said. But keeping it hidden still hurt us. We needed to face it together. Michael nodded slowly. I know. I was wrong to keep you all in the dark. But I was afraid of losing the family we had built. That confession laid bare the fragility that had underpinned his actions. It was a moment of vulnerability that bridged the gap between us and began to mend the broken trust. Over the following days, our conversations grew more open and honest. We spoke not just of the secret but of the fears and insecurities that had shaped our lives. Michael shared stories of struggles he hadn't revealed before, the moments when he felt isolated and overwhelmed. I listened, realizing that the man I had loved all along was more complex, more human than I had allowed myself to see. As understanding deepened, I found my own pain shifting. The sharp sting of betrayal softened into a quiet sorrow, mingled with compassion. Forgiveness no longer seemed a distant ideal, but a necessary step toward healing. One evening we sat together in the living room, the soft glow of a lamp casting gentle shadows. The silence between us was comfortable, a stark contrast to the tension that had filled the space before. Michael reached out, his hand resting lightly on mine. I want to rebuild what we lost, he said quietly. But I know it will take time. I squeezed his hand, feeling a warmth that spoke of hope and renewal. We'll take it one step at a time. In the weeks that followed, I began to see subtle changes within our family. The walls of silence started to crumble as conversations resumed, tentative but sincere. Mom and Dad, too, embarked on their own journeys of forgiveness, their faces slowly regaining the softness that pain had erased. Family dinners returned, not yet filled with the easy laughter of before but with honest exchanges and efforts to understand each other anew. The process was slow, marked by moments of frustration and setbacks, but also by genuine attempts to reconnect. I took it upon myself to be a bridge between Michael and our parents, sharing insights and encouraging dialogue. It was a role that weighed heavily on me, but one I embraced out of love and a desire to see our family healed. Through it all, I learned that forgiveness is not about erasing the past, but about acknowledging pain and choosing to move forward despite it. It requires patience, humility, and the courage to face uncomfortable truths. One afternoon, Michael and I sat in the garden, the scent of blooming flowers mingling with the fresh air. We spoke of the future, not as a promise of perfection, but as an open path where mistakes could be met with understanding. I'm grateful for this chance, he said, for your willingness to see me beyond my mistakes. I smiled, feeling a renewed connection that transcended the shadows of the past. And I'm grateful for your honesty. It's the foundation we need. As spring gave way to summer, the healing continued, slow but steady. The fractures in our family had not disappeared, but they had become part of a new landscape, one where love and trust could grow again, shaped by the trials we had endured. In choosing forgiveness, I discovered a strength I hadn't known I possessed. It was a quiet power that allowed me to hold space for pain and hope simultaneously. I realized that families are not defined by perfection, but by the resilience to overcome brokenness. That realization brought a sense of peace, fragile yet profound. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time since the secret had come to light, I felt we were moving toward something better. And so, with cautious optimism, I embraced the path of healing, knowing that while the past could not be changed, the future remained unwritten, waiting for us to write it together. The decision to forgive Michael was neither sudden nor simple. It was a choice I made after countless nights wrestling with pain, anger, and doubt. Yet, in that moment of surrender, I found a wellspring of strength that surprised me. Forgiveness was not about forgetting the past or excusing the hurt. It was about reclaiming the love that had been threatened and choosing to rebuild what had broken. In the days that followed, I approached my family with a renewed commitment to healing. The conversations that once felt heavy and confrontational softened into dialogues of understanding and empathy. I became a bridge between Michael and our parents, facilitating moments where wounds could be voiced and met with kindness rather than judgment. Our parents, too, embarked on their own journeys of reconciliation. They expressed their hurt openly but also showed a remarkable willingness to embrace Michael once more, recognizing that his secret had been born from fear rather than malice. The walls of mistrust that had loomed so large began to crumble as love, patience, and honesty took their place. Family dinners, once strained and silent, gradually returned to their familiar rhythm. Laughter returned in small doses, tentative but genuine, weaving its way back into our lives. The shared traditions that had once defined us took on new meaning, becoming symbols of resilience and hope rather than mere routine. Michael, for his part, showed a vulnerability that was both humbling and inspiring. He worked to regain our trust not through grand gestures, but through consistent honesty and openness. Late-night talks resumed, this time grounded in truth and a shared desire to move forward. I found myself reflecting on the journey we had taken, from the initial shock of betrayal to the slow, often painful process of understanding and forgiveness. It was a path marked by setbacks and breakthroughs, moments of doubt and clarity. But through it all, the enduring power of family love shone brightly, guiding us toward reconciliation. One evening, as we sat together on the porch, watching the city lights flicker against the darkening sky, I felt a profound sense of peace. Michael reached out, his hand finding mine with a gentle confidence. In that simple touch, I sensed the unspoken promise of trust rebuilt and bonds renewed. "We've come a long way," he said softly. I nodded, squeezing his hand. "And there's still more to do. But I believe we'll get there." In that moment, I understood that true relationships, especially those forged in the crucible of family, require patience, respect, and unwavering commitment to one another. They are not defined by perfection but by the willingness to confront pain together, and to choose love despite it. The secret that once threatened to tear us apart had instead become a catalyst for growth and deeper connection. We had learned that forgiveness is not a destination but a continuous journey, one that demands courage and grace. As the night deepened, we sat in comfortable silence, the city's heartbeat echoing around us. The fractures of the past were still visible, but they no longer defined us. Instead, they were reminders of resilience and the enduring strength found in forgiveness. From that moment on, I embraced life with renewed vigor, carrying with me the lessons learned through pain and healing. I cherished the genuine connections we had rebuilt, knowing that they were forged in truth and tempered by experience. Our family's story was no longer one of broken trust but of hope restored, an ongoing testament to the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. And in choosing to stay in this meaningful connection, I discovered something far greater than fleeting peace. I found a profound understanding of forgiveness and the unwavering bond of family. If you loved the story, like the video and subscribe.